yeah, I think it's a relevant topic because it literally touches everything we do and clients do and candidates do, and it has a, a conscious or unconscious effect. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if they don't realize that there is a psychological contract, there is always one. It's like an unwritten rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's thoughts and feelings of candidates, clients, recruiters. It's a whole mix of people in the dance that we're dancing, who all have a psychological contract with each other at various levels of the process. So when Tayla starts speaking to a candidate, that very, very first interaction already establishes some connection via email, telephone.
Yeah. And then also once we start the process and they're keen, it's just a mutual commitment to each other as well that I feel it's not happening at the moment. So like that mutual commitment to commit to me, like know that I'm going to do the best thing by you, but then you also have to do the best thing by me as well. So if you've got another offer, let me know. Don't lie to me. It's nothing. I don't care if you've got another offer. It's a good thing that you've got another offer, but just let me know so then I can give you fair representation. Because if I don't know these things, how am I going to represent you fairly to the client? Just fair and honest representation comes back to that mutual commitment, I guess, and telling me everything that I ask and not sort of going behind my back, because that doesn't help any of us.
Yeah.
I looked at the definition of a psychological contract, and the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development in the UK defines it as an individual's expectations, beliefs, ambitions and obligations as perceived by employer and worker. And I think the key word in that is perceived.
Yeah.
I think you have to, both parties, whether it's candidate or client, be very conscious of how something could be perceived, whether it's the reality or not. It's that perception. So candidate not being totally upfront with what they've got going on and it then coming out later in the process, that breaks that psychological contract with ourselves as the agency and with the client, because like any other relationship, it's about trust. And if that trust is broken, it's a lot harder to build back than it is to build in the first place. And the thing that stood out to me is that it's a psychological contract. It isn't like any other employment contract because it's totally intangible. So it's hard to define, and that's where constant and open communication comes in, either in the recruitment process with all parties involved or in the employment life cycle, because you need to have that clear and open communication for everybody's perception to align.
Yeah.
And the clearer it is and the more transparent it is, I think the not easier, but more trust can be built in that process. And again, I know not all recruitment companies are the same, and not all internal recruiters are the same. And a lot of people have been burned by recruitment agencies, and that's why we always advise get 2 or 3 that you trust and that you know that has your best interest at heart. And it might not be to find you the next job, but it might be to help you with your resume or to give a bit of advice, which is what we do on a daily basis. And for us, that's part of that psychological contract, because we're inputting and helping. And I think that expectation, sometimes you get disappointed because you put that out there and you expect that back. It doesn't always work like that, but it's just almost been in the last few months that there's less and less of that reciprocation back, and that respect back for people's time and effort that they've put in. I know, Tayla, you've put in hours and hours helping, and then just to be ghosted at the end of the line.
But more than once.
Absolutely. I think we're always very conscious as well that, you know, like all of the parties, we have a huge role to play in that psychological contract, you know, and if we're going to ask a candidate to commit to us, we're committing in return to manage the process as efficiently and effectively as we can and represent them as best as we can on their behalf. And that's something we absolutely take pride in and focus on every single day. It's key to doing things with integrity as far as we're concerned.
Yep, 100%. And sorry, Tayla. And wouldn't you want somebody like that to represent you to an employer?
Yeah, 100%. I wrote down just some things that sort of I kind of not expect, but like I set an expectation for myself. So with myself and a candidate. So my, I guess, psychological contract with them is always making sure there's timely communication. So always giving them updates when I have them, keeping them in the loop with what's happening and not sort of letting them go, well, what's happening with this? Making sure that they've always got an update. Again, like respectful treatment, like treating everyone as equal, like nobody's better than anybody else, that sort of thing. And then you kind of want that back as well. And confidentiality is massive. So I have a psychological contract that everything that you tell me is confidential. So, and I'm not going to go blurt that to the client or to anybody else either. And then again, that fair and honest representation, I'm going to do my best, the best that I can to make sure that you look great on a piece of paper, because that's my job, to get you that interview. And then making sure that that piece of paper reflects exactly what you can do. So that honest representation there. So you're not being misrepresented with what I do to your resume. And then, the other one, just that mutual commitment from both parties. Just making sure that we're committed to each other, like a marriage.
That's it.
But not so intense.
But that's exactly it. And I think for the way we represent candidates is we tell the client what's going on in your life, so that when you go sit in front of a client, you don't have to explain that you've got a newborn at home, or that your wife has just, or your husband or your partner has just moved jobs, or that they work night shift. So the client already has a picture when you sit down, and that's part of that trust, that you give us the information and we portray the information to represent you as best as possible, so that when you go do your interview, you can start building that psychological trust with the client, and we've laid the foundation for that to happen.
It's almost like we're painting a picture of you, of your, like, who you are as a person, your personality, who you are, where your passion lies, that sort of thing. But then also we're painting another picture of obviously what you can do. Correct. And your skills. So we're painting like two pictures and kind of merging them in the one to create. That's it.
100%.
And I think for clients, it's really key to manage the psychological contract throughout the recruitment process. And that's about honestly reflecting their values, honestly reflecting what the role is about, good and bad. Nothing's perfect in life. And if you have found that candidate that you really want, making sure that you get the feedback to them in a timely way. You get contracts out to them in a timely way. You don't throw a surprise in at the last minute. Sometimes we get a long way through a process and there's a global hiring freeze. Just be honest and let us know that, and then we can work with the candidate as they progress through other opportunities and potentially reignite something down the track. But it's that simple word of trust. And we've done previous videos on and talked about quiet quitting and quiet hiring. And I think quiet hiring has a lot of positives to it, but we said if it's not implemented with integrity by both parties, it has the potential to go a little astray. So I think they're great examples of where that psychological contract can either be strengthened or broken.
Yeah.
We don't see recruitment as a process. We see it about connecting to an organization and an individual for the best benefit to everyone. And because we take that mindset, we get emotionally invested. So that's great. Yeah. Everything goes to plan, but when times are more challenging, it can hit pretty hard.
Yeah,
definitely. We wear our heart on our sleeve and we put in 110% with everything. So it's like there's only so many kickbacks we can take.
Yep.
Until you start to get like, is it me? Am I doing something? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, everything.
All you've got to do is look at all the news about banks going bust and the economy and organizations talking about right sizing, and everyone's running a little bit scared, wondering whether they're secure and whether they should be making a move. And I've got to just look after myself and my family, because if I don't, nobody else will. And absolutely get that, but it's about sort of removing yourself from that short-term view and thinking, not forgetting the big picture.
Yeah.